Hello everyone, today I'll be talking about Zyon Grand, the latest condominium launch coming up in River Valley. No doubt that it has garnered quite a bit of attention as it's the tallest integrated development in the area. So the Showflat preview is coming out real soon from the 8th of October to the 21st of October. So if you're curious if this project is actually worth the wait, keep watching my analysis. So you can actually reach me by scanning this WhatsApp QR code for an in-depth discussion. So this will be the agenda for today's video. There will be 5 portions. The first part will be covering concerns of oversupply because in the past 2 months alone, we have already seen 2 new projects for sale in River Valley out of all the 5 plots over there. So is this actually a risk or opportunity? Following that, I'll be covering some of the USPs of Zyon Grand, like the location, architecture, site plan, and also how it compares to Promenade Peak and River Green. Followed by the service apartment in Zyon Grand, some of the pros and cons, and lastly, the floor plan analysis. So in the past 2 months alone, we have seen 2 new projects out for sale in River Valley out of the 5 plots of land that have already been sold. So at the point of filming, River Green by Wing Tai actually already sold 59%. And Promenade Peak by All Green sold 59%. And now we have Zyon Grand that's about to introduce yet another 706 units into the area, not to mention River Modern by Guaco Land, which has yet to be launched. So this actually brings the total upcoming supply of the units to over 2,300 within a short span of 6 months. The main difference between all the projects is that for Zyon Grand, right, it is the only project that's integrated with Havelock MRT. A common concern that's on our minds would be, is there going to be an oversupply of units in this area which makes it actually too risky to enter? And of course, which project is the best? Frankly speaking, I feel that the sudden influx of supply is actually an opportunity for buyers to move into the River Valley area at attractive prices, simply because the back-to-back launches actually mandates for developers to compete for the same group of buyers through their own strategies of fear not selling most of their units in time. So do stay tuned to this video as I'll be talking about the different price strategies used by the developers so far and how we can actually learn from them in anticipation of Zyon Grand's launch prices. So where exactly is Zyon Grand located at? It is this land parcel over here that is actually bound by Kim Seng Road, Zyon Road and Havelock Avenue. It is also integrated with the new Havelock MRT. Okay, so moving on to project information, we have CDL and Mitsui Photosung Group, who are very well-known developers in Singapore. They have 2 blocks of 62-storey residential development and 1 tower of 36-storey long-stay service apartments with restaurants, supermarket and an early childhood development centre. So for this particular long-stay service apartments, it's actually under the new scheme called the SA2 scheme, which I'll cover a bit more in detail later. So this is in District 3. The address is actually Kim Seng Road 3 and 5. This is actually a leasehold project, 99 years commencing from July 2024, and the expected TOP date is actually 2032. And for the land area for this project, it is really huge. It is one of the largest plots of land in River Valley, standing at 15,277 square meters. And for the number of residential units, we have 706. For car park lots, we actually have 595 car park lots. Just for ratio, right, at least 80% of the car parks are actually located to the residents, which is really rare because typically for integrated projects in Singapore, we're looking at about 50% since the MRT is literally just at your doorstep. So for Zyon Grand's location, because it is integrated with Havelock MRT, you actually are just 1 stop away from Outram Park MRT station where we have the SGH campus, and this is actually where some of your tenants might come from if you're looking to buy for investment, because these are the medical staff and doctors who will be working at this campus. And just 1 stop away, we have Great Wall, and honestly, you can even just walk to Great Wall because it is about a 5 minutes walk. We have Ion Orchard, which is 2 stops. Of course, the CBD, which is 4 stops away at Shenton Way. Moving on to some of the lifestyle options in Zyon Grand. We have the restaurants and supermarkets just downstairs. You're also a 3 minutes drive away to Robinson Quay, where you have quite a lot of dining options and bars there. You're a 5 minutes drive to Tiong Bahru for the food market and hawker centre. 8 minutes drive to Orchard Road. 7 minutes walk to Zion Riverside Food Centre. And of course, a 5 minutes walk to Alexandra Park Connector for your nature retreat. Honestly, I really like the River Valley area. So if I was looking for a centrally located project that really stands out in terms of its design, MRT right at my doorstep, super convenient lifestyle amenities and food just downstairs, then Zyon Grand would be a great fit. But before I dive into the project specifics, it is worthwhile to mention that Zyon Grand has a very strong powerhouse team. Other than the two renowned developers, they have partnered with world-class architects like Nikken and ADDP. Just to share a little bit more about Nikken, they are actually the second largest architectural practice in the world, with 125 years of experience. So they are also the ones who designed Tokyo Skytree in Japan, which some of us might be very familiar with if we have visited Tokyo before. So the co-founders for this project will be EcoPlan and Hui Hub, which are really house names that most of us are quite familiar with in Singapore. So this is the powerhouse team behind the top 4 USPs that I feel really makes Zyon Grand stand out amongst the other recent launches. So if you're worried that there is an oversupply and too many units to choose from, I believe that the project attributes alone should already help Zyon Grand to stand out if you're considering a purchase here. So number 1, Zyon Grand actually enjoys prominent dual frontage along 2 main roads. We can see over here that it is actually fronted by Zyon Road and also Kim Seng Road. And then Havelock Avenue is right here. So when people drive by or walk past, they will definitely not miss this skyscraper project given that it is already 62 stories tall. Therefore, in the resale market, right, when buyers think about moving into River Valley, can I say that they will most likely remember and think about this project first simply because of its high visibility. It's just like how when I think of moving to Harbourfront, the first project that comes to mind would be Keppel Bay Reflections, just because it has the most unique architecture out of all the residential projects there. Okay, number 2. Zyon Grand actually has a really iconic architecture. It has 2 stories of high-rise 43-story building. And on top of all the buildings, right, you can notice that it actually comes with a really brightly lit crown and a very unique facade that resembles Singapore's national flower, which is the orchid. Number 3, Zyon Grand actually has one of the largest land plots in River Valley, standing at over 164,000 square feet. You have 2 blocks of residential towers and 1 block of service apartments here. So for Zyon Grand, right, it's actually approximately 22.82 meters from the street level. That is about 7 stories from the ground. So when you are in a project that's elevated, right, you tend to enjoy better views on the higher floors. And for Zyon Grand, there's plenty of facilities in this development itself. Over here, we have the tennis court, which is also a pickleball court. And one of the good things to note is that there's a residential concierge service available just at the drop-off point. So for time-starved individuals, right, if you really need help with your day-to-day activities, like booking a restaurant for your gatherings, right, the concierge service will actually come really handy, or if you just need like laundry service. So for Block 3 and Block 5, these are the residential portions of the development. The drop-off point is here, and you'll be pleased to know that actually there are separated drop-off points for the residential and the commercial component over here. So if you look at the site plan itself, Zyon Grand only has 6 units per floor and is actually served by 4 lifts. And this is actually more than sufficient since one of the stacks will already have its own private lift. Just for some scale and perspective, River Green has 15 units with 6 lifts serving each floor, while Promenade Peak has 12 units on each floor and 6 lifts as well. So this might actually feel quite dense. So on the right side, the developers have actually shared that it is more of a quiet luxury with some of your yoga studio and your media room and also your game studios over here. While on the left side is more of like a family zone because your kids' playground and kids' pool is actually located on this side of the development. Lastly, if you look at the height of Zyon Grand standing at 62 stories, right, you'll realize that when you compare it to the neighbors, most of them are about 36 to about 40 stories high. So for Zyon Grand, which is at 62 stories, you can actually expect fantastic views, especially for the higher floor units above 30th floor. So there's also a good block-to-block distance for Zyon Grand compared to its neighbors, because over here, this is where Promenade Peak is actually located at. And you can see that it's about 70 meters away from Promenade Peak. And for this stack of units, it is actually facing the pool, so the views won't be too blocked. Okay, moving on to the schematic section for this development, developers have actually shared that there are designated parking lots for residential car parks at basement 2 and basement 3. And basement 1 is actually where you're integrated with Havelock MRT, and you get to enjoy the supermarket, restaurants, and F&B options there, and also the early childhood development center on basement 1. So out of the 23 shops, including supermarket, right, actually 22 of them are F&B approved, so you never have to worry about having food options just downstairs. Lastly, because Zyon Grand is a skyscraper, you can expect really decent views from the north and the south, which most of the units are facing towards. So none of the units at Zyon Grand are actually facing each other, which is why I feel like this development is really livable, because on the north side, right, you're looking at Great World City views, Ion Orchard, and of course River Valley Primary School, which is actually just 1 kilometer away from Zyon Grand. And on the south side, you will get the CBD views, and you get the pocket sea views from Sentosa area. And of course, the Tiong Bahru neighborhood is over here. Next, let's talk about the pros and cons of having a service apartment within the same premises. So for those of you who are not very familiar with the new SA2 scheme, Zyon Grand is actually the first land parcel with service apartments to be awarded that falls under this new long stay service apartment scheme. So what this means is that for the service apartments that CDL has built here, right, there is a minimum stay requirement of 3 months. And the other land parcels with long stay service apartments are actually still not bidded for, and it hasn't been awarded. So for example, there are other land parcels at Upper Thomson Road, Parcel A, just beside Springleaf Residences, and of course a Media Circle at 1 North. So before we dive into how service apartments actually affect how the residential units might perform in this area, we can talk about the different types of stays. So for short stay, right, you typically look at hotels, which is the most expensive. So in this area, you're looking at easily at least $300 per night at a hotel. So for medium-term stays, we'll be looking at service apartments, which typically require a 7-day minimum duration of stay. So just for some context, Great World service apartments, right, the 3-bedders are going for about 13.5K, and the 2-bedders are going for 10.5K. But of course, these are bigger units which may not be very comparable to the service apartments that CDL is intending to build here. So for the SA2 scheme, it will be a minimum of 3 months of stay. So I would say that this SA2 is actually in between the medium-term stay service apartments that we already see in today's market, and also the long-term stay, which is condos, which typically have 1 to 2 years leases. And for condos, right, it is usually going to be slightly cheaper than the service apartments in the area, especially if the condos are more compact in size. So that being said, right, some of you might have concerns about the competition with regards to securing tenants for your units, and will this actually reduce rental yields as well? So I would say for developments like Riviera, which already has the service apartment component called Fraser Residences, we have seen that at Riviera, the residential units tend to secure a higher rental because the service apartments there have already helped to pull up a bit of the rental to set some of the benchmark rental over there. So likewise, we can expect the same type of performance for Zyon Grand's residential units. So in terms of competing for tenant pool, right, I would say that Zyon Grand service apartments is actually targeting a different group of tenants, because these are people who are looking at minimum 3 months of stay compared to your condo unit at Zyon Grand, which is looking at about 1 to 2 years of lease. So can I say that a few of these tenants who are renting short-term at the service apartments, will they actually consider moving to Zyon Grand for longer-term leases, which will typically be cheaper since they are already familiar with this development? So other than the rentability of the units for investors, the next question is, does having service apartments affect the overall prices of the residential units at Zyon Grand? So because the service apartments cannot be strata subdivided for sale, a lot of the cash flows that developer has, right, will be tied up during its construction phase before it is actually ready for lease. So naturally, they will need to generate more cash flow from the sale of the Zyon Grand condo units first off plan. So therefore, I would say that this will actually have a bit of implication on the launch prices for Zyon Grand, reasons for which I will cover shortly. So if you have been following the new launches in River Valley, we can see that CDL managed to get the lowest land price out of all the launches so far, which is at 1,202 per square foot per plot ratio. So comparing this to River Green, which is just beside Great World MRT, The developers managed to secure it at 1325 per square foot per plot ratio. Comparing this to Promenade Peak, which is our direct neighbour, they secured it at 1304. And Real Modern, which is by Guaco Land, actually secured it at 1420. So for Real Modern, we don't have many details about the project yet, but it is going to be the next new launch in River Valley after Zyon Grand. So does securing the land at a lower land cost mean that CDL can sell its units at a lower price? I would say not necessarily for this plot of land because of the service apartment component. So let's take a look at how the developers of River Green and Promenade Peak actually priced their units on launch day according to their land bids and the height of their respective projects. So across the 3 new launches, we can see that River Green has the smallest unit sizes so far. So none of their units actually cross 1,000 square feet, if you notice. And Promenade Peak actually has larger unit sizes in general. So for Zyon Grand, right, I would say that for the smaller units like the 1-bed to 2-bedders and even the 3-bedders, it is quite compact and they have smaller sizes that are slightly smaller than Promenade Peaks. That being said, we can see that actually for Zyon Grand, the developers are trying to keep the quantum a bit more affordable, while the bigger units like the 4-bedroom to 5-bedroom actually cater to families who value space and comfort. So for River Green, it is clear that the developers are keeping the unit sizes really small so that the overall quantum is more affordable. But this also means that there's a higher starting from PSF. So during the launch back in early August, we can see that River Green actually starting from launch prices at 2,864 per square foot. And the units are generally lower quantum. You can see that the 1-bedroom is from 1.2 mil, 2-bedroom from 1.5. The 2 premium from 1.72, the 3-bedders are actually under 2.5 million and the 4-bedders are under 3 million. So these are some of the starting prices for River Green. So for Promenade Peak, you'll realize that for the unit sizes, they are slightly bigger than River Green. And that being said, the lower starting from per square foot, right, was actually at 2,688, while the units actually have a higher quantum. Just by observing the pricing strategies by Promenade Peak and River Green, we'll be able to roughly guess how CDL might launch their prices, which I would say will be quite similar to Promenade Peak, given that Promenade Peak is 63 stories while Zyon Grand is 62. So assuming that the maximum prices per square foot that developers had intended to sell their units is at 3,006 for both River Green and Promenade Peak, and if you take a 0.5% price jump per floor downwards, actually the developers will have lesser floors to spread this average per square foot across. So that's why you see during launch for River Green, the starting from prices are much higher at 2,846 per square foot, and of course because the unit sizes are much smaller. So for Promenade Peak, the starting from prices was at 2,688 because developers actually had more number of floors to play around with for them to achieve a lower starting from per square foot. So for Zyon Grand, right, how does this actually apply to us? Given that the developers have to build the service apartments while ensuring steady cash flow, it is very likely that the average price per square foot achieved during the launch might be slightly higher than Promenade Peak. I would say about maybe 2,750 per square foot starting from. So since Promenade Peak and Zyon Grand are similar in terms of their heights, we should be able to draw some conclusion to CDL's pricing strategy during the launch. Moving on to the floor plan analysis, as mentioned earlier, CDL actually tried to achieve a good mix of smaller units to keep the overall quantum more affordable while retaining the larger units for those who value space and luxury. But here's the twist. For buyers who are aiming for the larger units, like the 3-bedroom premium and the 4-bedroom premium, right, you'll be very happy to know that there might be a chance of you getting a cheaper unit here compared to Promenade Peak simply because of the way that CDL has distributed their units. So for Zyon Grand, the 4-bedroom units actually start from level 2 to level 42. This means that buyers who are looking for a bigger unit can now enter at a lower price than Promenade Peak, which actually had their 4-bedders above level 44 under the Promenade Suites collection. So similarly, for the 3-bedroom plus study, Zyon Grand has actually distributed it from level 2 to level 61 as well. So while Promenade Peak only has their 3-bedroom premium units from level 2 to level 62. So in my opinion, I feel that this is really a game changer because affordability is really what buyers today are looking out for. Now let's dive into the 1 bedroom plus study analysis. So the layout is pretty standard except that there's no balcony. This is actually a plus point for investors because quantum is kept lower and livable space is maximized. So the projected rental figures were actually derived from Riviere as the closest comparable because it also has a service apartment component. Given that the 1 bedroom average rental is already at $5,100, which is about $9.30 per square foot for a 500 to 600 square feet unit, while the highest rental is already transacting at $6,000, which is almost $11 per square foot. Zyon Grand's 1 bed plus study, which is 474 square feet, should be able to achieve about $5,000 per month. And assuming the $2,750 per square foot is the starting from price, you're looking at a possible entry price of $1.3 million. So this translates to a rather high rental yield of 4.6%. So even at the average per square foot of say 3,001, you are looking at below 1.5 million, which is a super competitive price compared to Riviere's average 1 bedroom price, which is already transacting at 1.68 million, almost 3,000 per square foot. And the highest transacted today is already at 1.828 million, which is about 3,200 per square foot. So this means that someone out there is already willing to pay this amount for a non-harmonized 1 bedder. So for the non-harmonized size, it's about 52 square meters. And if you were to take away the 7 square meter for a balcony and the 3 square meter for the AC ledge, you are effectively looking at 42 square meters, which is about 452 square feet. Very comparable to Zyon Grand's 1 bedroom plus study. For the 2 bedroom layouts at Zyon Grand, the smallest unit is actually the 2 bed 1 bath, 538 square feet. It's a pretty standard layout as well. You have the dumbbell layout, the master bedroom and bedroom 2, and also an open concept kitchen. So for the master bedroom, right, you actually get full height windows over here. And the bedroom 2 actually has a really decent size of 9 square meters, which fit at least a queen size bed. So using Riviere as a comparison again, if we took a conservative rental figure of about, let's say in the middle, about 5,500 for a 2 bed 1 bath, and since the unit size is about the same, the possible entry price that you're looking at is at 1.479 million. The projected rental yield for Zyon Grand actually pretty decent at almost 4.5%. So this rental yield is really attractive, probably because River Valley area typically has a stronger rental demand. And just for some context, in River Valley, most of the leasehold properties actually have 3 to 3.5% yield on average. So furthermore, there's actually a lower supply of 2 bed 1 baths in River Valley in the resale market. And most of the units are actually in Well Hill residences as of now. So lastly, for the 2 bed 2 bath, it's 646 square feet in Zyon Grand. This is actually where rental yield starts to dip below 4%. So for investors, you might be better off getting the 2 bed 1 bath unit for investment instead, if you are looking at entering at a lower quantum of, let's say, below 1.7 million. So if you're considering this for own stay, it might be worthwhile as you get 2 proper bedrooms and bathrooms at a rather affordable price of $2 million, even at the 30th floor, assuming an average per square foot of 3,100. So also plus point, you get a window over here in a master bedroom because it's actually at the corner stack for 2 bed 2 baths. For buyers who have a higher budget of about 2 million to 2.3 million and you're actually looking for a comfortable 2-bedder with study and enclosed kitchen over here, this 721 square feet unit, which is also the Showflat unit, might be a good choice because Zyon Grand is a harmonized project. You're paying for exactly 721 square foot of space compared to the 2-bedders at Martin Modern, which has already transacted at 2.1 million. And that's actually a non-harmonized project, which is 764 square feet. Moving on to the 3 bedrooms, there are 2 types over here at Zyon Grand. We have the 818 square feet and the 861 square feet. So my preferred layout type would be the bigger one over here because it actually comes with an enclosed kitchen. So these unit types tend to do better than the 3-bedders without an enclosed kitchen, because your next buyers will most likely be families or even HDB upgraders who would find this type of layout, the 861 square feet one, more functional. So comparing this to Riviere, this size is actually Riviere's 2-bedder sizes, which is about 800 plus square feet. And this has already transacted at 2.5 million. So over here at Zyon Grand, you get 3 bedrooms at a possible entry price of 2.25 million and 2.4 million starting from. For the 3-bedroom plus study layouts, the developers decided to build them below 1,100 square foot, unlike Promenade Peak, where the bigger 3-bedroom premium units actually range from 1,163 to 1,195 square foot. And it doesn't come with a study. So what's interesting is that if you take a look at the layouts, there's actually a beam at the living room area. So because Zyon Grand is actually a PPVC project, this beam cannot be knocked down, but instead perhaps you can use it as like a marker to separate your living room and study area. And you might even want to expand the living area if you decided not to have a study to make it feel more spacious. So for the 1076 square feet is actually the Showflat unit type. There is a generous width of about 6 meters from the balcony sliding door to the kitchen area. So this will help to give a very spacious feel the moment that you enter the house from here. It's actually good to know that all the 3-bedroom premium types bathrooms actually come with a window, even the helper's toilet, which is pretty rare over here. And you're looking at a possible entry price of 2.9 million onwards, which is actually pretty attractive when most of the decent-sized 3-bedders in River Valley already starts from 3 million in the resale market. Meaning that if you're able to get a 3-bedroom premium plus study unit in Zyon Grand for about 3 million for the lower floor units, I would say that it's pretty attractive because the price gap is not too big. The 4-bedroom analysis. All the 4-bedders come with a private lift in Zyon Grand. We have 2 unit types, the 1421 square feet and the 1581 square feet. So for the 1421 square feet unit, you get a really nice L-shaped wet kitchen. And the dry kitchen area for both unit types come with this waterfall concept style island table in the middle. And you can see that all the bedrooms are at least 9 square meters, so you can fit a queen-size bed in all of the bedrooms. For the bigger unit type, the 1518 square feet unit, the master bedroom actually comes with a walk-in wardrobe that is featuring a collapsible glass facade that's imported from Italy. So my only concern for these 2 layouts is that the junior master bath actually doesn't come with a window, which is usually not the norm for more premium units in new launches today. Other than that, the 2 layouts are pretty similar. The only difference is likely the width of the living room, because the smaller units is standing at about 6 meters, while the bigger unit is about 5.5 here. So the possible entry price for the 4-bedders over here would likely be from 3.9 million onwards, and of course the bigger units will be about 4.2 million onwards, which is really attractive because when you compare this to Riviere, right, the 4-bedders there are already going for 6 million. I mean, granted that it's about 2,000 square feet over there. If you are looking for a 4-bedroom valley area, you can expect to enter at a much lower price. And when you compare this to Promenade Peak, the 4-bedders are actually higher price because they are starting from level 44 onwards only. So comparing the 4-bedroom premium Showflat unit type to the bigger 4-bedroom premium that comes with a study, it is a 1,615 square foot. So for layout wise, it's pretty similar. You have the back of house, which is the yard and dry kitchen area. The living room for the 1615 square feet unit is definitely going to be more spacious at 34 square meters compared to the premium unit without the study. It's about 27 square meters. So other than that, the study area is actually just this small corner over here. So for the possible entry price, we're looking at about 4.44 million onwards for the 1615 square feet unit. Comparing this to Riviere's 3-bedder, right, for about the same size at 1,173 square foot, the last transacted there is at about 3.35 million already. Last but not the least, we have Zyon Grand's 5-bedroom which comes with a private lift. We're looking at 1,819 square foot. It is a really huge, large format unit over here, and layout-wise, I would say is pretty decent as well. Your living room and dining room area is actually going to be very spacious at about 35 square meters with a width of 6.14 from the dry kitchen to the balcony. And of course, the master bedroom is also going to be the most spacious at 24 square meters. We have the walk-in wardrobe, similar to the 4-bedroom layout. So for the possible entry price for 5-bedders in Zyon Grand, we're looking at about 5 million onwards. So just for some context, there is currently a super low supply of 5-bedders in the area. You would only have the Trillium and Promenade Peak as one of your options now. So for the Trillium, it's a freehold development and the average prices for the 5-bedders there are already at 6 million. While for Promenade Peak, the average 5-bed prices have already transacted at 6.5 million onwards. To be able to get a 5-bedroom unit of this size at about 5 million, I would say is pretty attractive as well. So these are some perspectives of Zyon Grand. In general, it really has a very beautiful landscaping, and the design elements are actually leaning towards like Japanese style Zen architecture. So in conclusion, after studying the project attributes, I feel that if you're someone who really values convenience and being near to everything like the MRT, F&B options and lifestyle amenities right at your doorstep, and you're actually looking for a centrally located project in the city, then you might want to take a look at Zyon Grand. So that's all from me today. If you found this video useful, please feel free to like and subscribe to my channel. Thank you.